Many Catholics of my generation are very familiar with St Mark's Gospel. We studied it at O level. Back then, the narrative really gripped me. I loved the pace with which it is told. And then Jesus did this, and then he said that, and then he moved on to this place, and then he said this to these people. The style communicates excitement and urgency. You're in no doubt that what you are reading is in the mind of the author, the most important story ever told. Three events struck me particularly, and they have become, I can see, a frame of reference for the whole of my Christian life ever since. The first happens early in the morning of the second day of Jesus' public ministry. He has called his first disciples, healed Peter's mother-in-law, and then healed all the townspeople who came to them with their different ailments. We've been made aware that there is nothing vague about the salvation that is being offered. The key sign of it is recovery through Jesus' intervention from severe life-limiting maladies. This first day speaks to us in our current crisis with particular forcefulness, I think. And then the following morning, long before dawn, Peter and the others go looking for Jesus and they can't find him, and then they discover him in a remote place praying. Nothing better expresses for me than this passage the necessity of prayer in a full, integrated, worthwhile and authentic human life. Jesus enters into silent intimacy with his unseen Father in heaven. He draws strength for his mission from this communion, and he allows himself to be perceived in this act of communion. I could see all of this, and I could begin to appreciate that what we are looking at is a manifestation of the interior life of the Blessed Trinity. Also, I intuited that Jesus wanted me to enter into his relationship with the Father. Well, what's not to like about all of this? My imagination was on fire. Here I've discovered the whole purpose of my life in one story, I thought. Action to help others, following the example of Jesus, and prayer. And I'm not even 16 yet. But there was more. That year, my class, 5 Howard, went on retreat to St Stephen's Youth Centre in Skipton, and Father Pat Smythe, the diocesan youth chaplain, taught us how to meditate. He took us through a quietening exercise, helped us to see how to slow down through moderating our breathing, how to deal with distractions that flitted through our minds, how to place and to be untroubled by ambient noise. And then he read a passage from Scripture to us, slowly, inviting us to fix our minds on a particular phrase or word. And then he read the passage to us again. Well, as I lay there on the floor of this big room with my peers all around me, our eyes closed during the silence which followed, all I can say is that Palestine opened up in front of me, and Jesus greeted me and smiled at me and invited me to meet him again in the future. I don't recall what the passage was about now, but I do remember as the coach pulled away from the centre as we headed home a couple of days later, thinking to myself how great the meditation had been and resolving to continue the practice somehow in the months ahead, while at the same time realising that this would prove pretty challenging. A curtain had been raised for me, and behind it I could see reality. That's what it felt like. The second passage from Mark happens quite soon after the one about Jesus praying. It's when Jesus is asleep in the boat with his apostles on the Sea of Galilee, and a violent storm begins during the night, such that they think they're going to drown. They awaken Jesus, and he stills the elements, and then rebukes his apostles for their lack of faith. I read this passage quite often to people when I celebrate the sacrament of the sick in their homes. Why are you afraid? How is it that you have no faith? Says Jesus to them, says Jesus to me. And in our mind's eyes, we gaze upon him with us at that moment, majestic, risen, all-powerful. When I was at seminary in a pastoral class, one of my year group, who had experience of youth work, led us in a role play Lectio Divina, in which some of us were apostles in the boat, one of us was Jesus, and I, with a large sheet of cardboard, which I rippled with great vim, was the storm. "Don't you care? We are going down," one of my fellows shouted over the din. And the words reverberate now, forming a heartfelt prayer uttered in the name of all the harassed peoples of the world. Don't you care? My third scene is the feeding of the 5,000. The contrast couldn't be greater. Here everything is calm and orderly. People sit in large groups on the green grass. Brilliant detail that. It draws you in, makes you feel that you're actually there. And Jesus takes, blesses, breaks, and distributes the bread and the fish, and everybody eats and has their fill. This story, I can see, is in effect God's answer. It shows that he does care. I am especially reminded of this scene when I think of the World Youth Days, which John Paul II, the great apostle to the young, instituted. I've been on 4 of these as a priest with groups from the diocese: Paris, Cologne, Sydney and Madrid. I'm trying to get together a group of young people from the parish for the next one in Portugal in 2023. A young woman, about 16, dropped off some food for me from her gran yesterday, and I pursued her to the car while maintaining social distancing. "Come to Portugal with us," I said. "You'll love it. It'll change your life." "I'll think about it, Father," she said.